Now, one thing is that you're known, of course, for your controversial hot takes. So, what would you say would be the opinion that has got you in the most stum?
Oh well,
trouble?
it's probably everything about the. That's probably the biggest thing because people can
steady on. We call them the Swedes about the Swedes.
The Swedes, right? Yeah. Yeah, almost everything else, I really don't get too much pushback, and there's actually pretty widespread agreement on most of what I say on my show with everything else. But it's the Swedish dilemma, which seems to be the biggest one, and that's because it's so real. It's because it's so real, particularly in all of American politics, but in conservative politics, it's overwhelming. And it's very personal, and you'd be surprised. You don't have to go very far to start to see this, because when I was in high school and I started learning about this towards the end of high school, beginning of college, I thought, oh, come on, there can't possibly this sort of conspiracy. I had the same reaction most normal people do. And you find you really don't have to go very far in politics. Like it's not many steps removed from like getting involved in a campaign, like ground level politics, and then coming up against this very, very apparent dynamic in American politics. And that's why you're not allowed to even, that's really where the line is. That's a one thing. I don't care how based people are, if they're accepted by the system, if they're on social media, if they're working in conservative politics for some, media conglomerate, that's the one thing they can't even approach. There's a lot of stuff you could sort of dog whistle and get away with, the race stuff, fascism, religion. Matt Walsh works for Daily Wire. He says, I'm a theocratic fascist. Well, he can never say he's like a theocratic Nazi. He can never say that. And he even got in trouble at Daily Wire for saying that we shouldn't go fight and die in wars for Israel. So that seems to be the biggest one. Sweden, that's right, for Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've noticed is that the Swedes that live in Sweden, they tend to be more open to discussing this because I don't know, they've kind of suffered and they're under attack from the Norwegians, and so they feel if I say to them, look, there's evidence that you're very high in ethnocentrism, you Swedes, you're a very ethnocentric Nordic people, then they will say, yeah, we are, yeah, and the reason we are is because of our marriage customs, because of our history of getting our pastors to have lots of children, because of just genetics. I mean, because of the way we were treated in Europe, treated in France, we were compelled to become highly ethnocentric. Those kinds of Swedes, and those Swedes will tell me that they see the Swedes in America as really quite different from them. I actually had someone on this channel who was a Swedish pastor who was occupying some land in Norway. And he was saying to me, I agree with you. I have no problem discussing this, but it's Swedes that are in America. So why do you think that it's the American Swedes that seem to have an issue with this?
Because the thing is about these people is that they're foreign. Fundamentally, is what characterizes them as they're foreign and different from us. And it's one thing over there in their homeland, where they've got their own place. Here, they're visitors, here they're interlopers. And there's this sort of game where they have to blend in at once. They're sort of playing the part of a native, but at the same time, there's sort of this other identity there. And so to me, that's really the crux of it between the Swedish diaspora and the sort of Swedish nationalists, is that over here and in sort of Western, Southern Europe, not Northern Europe where they reside, they have got to play the part of, they're fellow Americans, they're fellow Europeans. They're not so dissimilar from us.
I know a Swedish American, and he's one of the most intelligent people I know, and not just that, but one of the most intellectually daring people I know. He'll dare to talk about race, and he got in a lot of trouble for arguing that philosophically that we should discuss race differences, and everything. He's rigorously logical, except the Swedish question, and except that kind of stuff where no, suddenly he will throw every fallacious argument he can. I know we've all got our blind spots, perhaps. People have said my blind spot is Toryism. I know some people would argue yours is Catholicism. I don't know, but his is definitely his Swedishness, and it's sad in a way, because I have a chap I've had on here who's a Jamaican, and he's based, and he doesn't have any blind spots about this. He's perfectly happy to discuss, all of these reasonable issues. I just don't know why he has to have it.